Struggling to earn 3 stars at Town Hall 13? Well, these are the 5 best attack strategies you need to use for more 3 stars. Starting at number 5, we have the Fireball Rocket Balloon strategy, which is pretty dang powerful, but we want to start off with a Grand Warden charge. Running the Rage Gem allows our Warden to attack faster while also buffing the healer's healing output, which is going to give more healing to the Warden, and thus he's going to stay alive for longer. We're also using the Flame Flinger here, and the main goal of this is to remove as many defenses before it pops. So making sure to keep this away from Expos and Mortars tends to be ideal. You also need to scout for any Teslas or skeleton traps, so using things like Barbarians is a great way to do that, and removing them with either said rocket loons or even a few Valkyries or Wizards to remove the skeleton traps. Otherwise, as your Warden is charging, you want to clear as many defenses when paired with the Flame Flinger before then running a Ice Block spell in order to freeze him in place, and using your invisibility spells and the Earthquake spells to send your Fireball in towards a given area. In this case, we're able to remove the enemy CC and of course remove the Town Hall, so the Warden is going to continue to charge on that side. That way, we can set up the other side of our funnel with a few baby dragons, maybe a Valkyrie. You can take different troops if you want in order to set up a more successful funnel before you actually send in your Barbarian King, your Ice Golem, your Archer Queen right the way into the base. Since you don't have access to something like a Siege Barrack to provide additional funneling, you just want to make sure that you have your Barbarian King and Archer Queen moving in. The Royal Champion is using her Rocket Spear and Seeking Shield to get even more value, including removing the Eagle Artillery. This allows you to kind of open the walls with your Barbarian King and Archer Queen to also then move in and deal even more damage to defenses while your Grand Warden is still charging, and having a rage spell is perfect for this. Obviously, you then always want to use your rocket balloons on the back end. They're going to allow you to clear out defenses, and since they have a built-in haste spell, you don't really need to worry about them getting to the defenses because they will be able to. Otherwise, you should have some cleanup via any wizards, headhunters if you didn't use them, or minions, and realistically, you should be able to 3-star most of the time with this strategy. At number 4 is the Super Witch Smash. This is still very powerful as we are running the Fireball with it, so we want to start with the Grand Warden and his healers. This is obviously going to allow him to attack a little bit faster, clear through these areas a little bit sooner, but then also be able to keep him alive underneath the healers thanks to the Rage Gem. Otherwise, all we're doing is we're creating a bit of funneling. So we're clearing out these trash buildings, which is going to allow us to get our Fireball a little bit deeper into the base to get some solid value and create a bit of pathing for our Super Witches. So we just want to be very patient, allowing him to clear any outer defenses before using our invisibility spells, using the Fireball and 2 Earthquake spells to remove as much as we can. If you're dealing with an enemy hero, let's say the Barbarian King, we're able to use a Headhunter in order to deal with that. Obviously, we want to cut off the other side of our funnel, so after we lure the Super Witches with our Grand Warden, we're going to use the Yeti and the Siege Barrack on the other side to cut off the funnel. This allows us to have the Archer Queen alongside the Barbarian King work into the base alongside the Apprentice Warden. This is going to buff up everything, the big boys, Super Witches, and our heroes as they dive into the base. As you work in, you should try to use the Barbarian King ability early, since you want to be able to open up the walls while also having a rage spell at the ready to provide even greater support for your Super Witches, Big Boys, and your Archer Queen as they move deeper in. You do want to make sure that as you're dealing with the defensive CC, you can easily deal with that with maybe a poison spell, but obviously having an ice block is also good because this is going to allow you to keep everything tanking while still getting full healing output from the healers. Otherwise, you can just allow them to move through with a jump spell connecting them onto the back end. And as for the Royal Champion, you do want to use her Seeking Shield and Rocket Spear to help clear through any remaining defenses. Obviously, you can run the Electro Boots as well, but for those of you who don't have the Electro Boots or you're not using a Royal Champion charge, don't be forced into picking it up if you are a fan of using Super Witches. As for number 3, we have the Mass Super Hog Attack. This is very powerful as we are starting with a Royal Champion charge. We're using her rocket spears here in order to clear out defenses early on so we can get right into the base to set up a proper funnel. This is why we want to run our invisibility spells every 4 seconds in order to keep her invisible out of sight while we're able to do damage to defenses. You can also skip over defenses to speed things up as she still is doing damage with the Electro Boots. This is where we can then recall her once all of our spells have been depleted so we get a proper funnel set. Now we need to create the other side of our funnel, so using a few Yetis is good enough in order to actually set up funneling so we can have our Barbarian King and Archer Queen move in right behind the log launcher that's opening walls. A neat trick is to use an Earthquake spell though along with this in order to not only speed up the wall breaking but also speed up removing defenses that are actually within its way. Otherwise, we want to have the King and Queen move in. If the king doesn't move in initially, we do have maybe an adjacent side to work in, whereas Giant Gauntlet and Rage Vial works perfectly in this situation, while our queen moves in with the CC Yetis. This allows us to use a rage to do even more damage and have all of our heroes converge and start smashing down the core. This is where we can then have our Super Hog Riders move in with the Apprentice Warden to provide more HP, the Royal Champion, and obviously the Grand Warden. As we go into a splash damage area though, we should use an early heal spell. This is going to keep our Super Hogs alive as they work around. You just need to make sure that what you are able to do is you want to be very patient with your Warren's Eternal Tome and Healing Tome. If the Town Hall still remains alive, you definitely want to save it for that. As you continue to work in still though, you should use it around the core or around the middle point of the base so you're able to at least keep most of your Super Hogs protected. This is where you can pretty much then obviously use another heal spell if need be. You can take any other spell if you really want, but a heal spell is always really nice. And as long as you have cleanup from things like the Super Riders, Wizards, Minions, etc., you should be able to 3-star most of the time. At number 2 is the Super Yeti Smash. Unlike some of the other strategies, we're not running a Royal Champion charge or a Fireball, but instead just a simple Warden charge. All we want to do is we want to clear as many defenses as possible while still creating a bit of funneling. So that is why we are using just the Warden with his Rage Gem, and we still have the Eternal Tome to support our Super Yetis. We just want to make sure that we are clearing out a bit of a section so the Super Yetis have a bit more control. That is really important for Super Yeti strategies, is actually maintaining control. So you want to use the Siege Barrack and the Archer Queen on the other side in order to cut off that part of the funnel. This is enough of a funnel set so you're able to actually get your Super Yetis to move into the base with the Warden following right behind, along with the Apprentice Warden and the Barbarian King. As you continue to work in, you should have a balloon to look for any seeking air mines while you slowly start to work in. Any other spells like invisibility can be used to protect your Super Yetis and all of your troops as you work into the core. This is where then you could arguably use a Warden Eternal Tome in order to protect everything as they walk into the core. And if you want to keep everything at least healed up, taking an Ice Block spell is a great idea as you're able to protect everything and keep everything moving while under full HP. You also have the Royal Champion that can be used on the back end to clear out defenses, while your Barbarian King is able to open up the rest of the base for your attack. This overall is extremely strong and pretty much overkill, as you have Super Yetis just all around just doing a ton of damage to buildings and defenses, and obviously having the Royal Champion to clear out a given section and also to control your Super Yetis so they're not splitting too easily. Otherwise, as long as you have some form of cleanup, and as long as you have a lot of troops still alive, you should be able to 3-star no problem. But the best attack strategy at number 1 is the Mass Dragons with the Royal Champion charge. This is by far the best strategy, and you always want to start off with the Royal Champion and her rocket spears. This is going to be more than enough for you to create a little bit of control for your Royal Champion charge itself, as you need this to go into the core so you can completely gut it. This is why I always recommend taking an earthquake spell, as it's going to allow you to get through some of those buildings a lot quicker. So you want to use it over a group of key defenses that you want to remove quickly. Otherwise, use your invisibility spells every 4 seconds in order to keep her invisible, keep her from taking too much damage. And you can use your invisibility spells as you start to see it wearing off. This is where you can allow your royal champion to get plenty of value as she works around, just allowing her to clear as many defenses as possible, especially the core ones. This then really gives you a lot of great pathing that you don't really need to worry about with your dragons. This is where then you can run the Archer Queen with her giant arrow and action figure and the siege barrack to set up one side of your funnel, and she's just going to walk down that side while we're going to use a dragon and the rest of our dragons to clear the bottom half of the base, since the middle is completely gone. A few dragons being used for funneling allow us to control where everything goes, but we should use an early dark orb to slow everything as we start to move in towards the town hall. This is going to allow us to let some of the dragons move through, and if any die, having the dark crown on the prince is always incredibly useful. But if you don't have the prince with his dark crown, then don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world, but it's always really nice to have because it does make the minion prince stronger. Either way, this is also going to allow us to use our Warren's Eternal Tome to keep everything protected as they work around. And with plenty of dragons alive, with the minion prince alive, even when boosted, this is going to allow you to more often than not 3-star plenty of bases so long as that royal champion can clear the core of the base. Each of these 5 attack strategies should guarantee you 3 stars so long as you know what you're doing. However, if you are struggling with choosing which equipment to prioritize upgrading, check the full guide out right here, but YouTube says you might like this one too.